Morning, everybody. Morning of Monday, September 17. We've had this impulse that came in off California as a result of, actually they're just developing or combining a weak wave coming in off the Pacific with an Arctic impulse. It's rolling over the top of this jet stream, and that warranted a lot of chemtrail off California, Nevada, portions of Utah yesterday, and now it's beginning to pulse here into Colorado. Not so much the trails, but what we're seeing are what would normally be clouds capable of supporting showers. You can see how the edges have gone profoundly hairy or fuzzy. And that's just one of the tools used to keep rain from coming together, is this diffuse look. And so the ice crystals are weeping out, and the cloud fails to maintain its integrity. And we can see right in here. So we develop one aspect of fall streak clouds, and you can see a very sharp definition to that. And then literally the ribs of the clouds as they angle back to the west. And you can see the individual pulses in the waves as the cloud is being driven this direction. And then the hairiness. I'm hearing another jet overhead. I haven't spotted it just yet, but we just had one low and slow, and he was just cutting the edges of this cloud. So they're outlying where energetically, whether that's via ionization with HARP, whether it's introducing a door or a dead orgon, or some other pulse wave to rip apart the clouds. I'm not sure which. Someday we'll figure it out. Someday that'll be shared with us. But now I'm hearing another plane. But nevertheless, we could have some showers today, but we're not, well, I can't say we're not going to, but right now there's very little showing up on radar simply because the integrity of the clouds has been hammered back. Alright, looks like it's going to be an interesting day. Alright, so I'm here in southern Colorado, just about right at the tip of the finger, on actually more like right there, of the pin, of the cursor, and we're watching this little low right here. Kind of got a nice little square in its center. But it's rolling overhead, and we're cloudy, a little blustery, certainly cool. And it's certainly going to freeze tonight. But what had my attention earlier, all this striping. Look at all those chemtrails laying out over Nevada. Look, boom, 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 boom. So they're blazing into Utah, and they're kind of creating this canopy of clouds. On the visible imagery, it's not terribly easy to see. We can pop over there and have a look-see in a minute. And then into Nevada, because the sun angle is high and we're not casting shadows, we're not picking up much of anything. But then here's our storm over Colorado, and then lots of the holes that we've been looking at the last couple of days, and around these holes we're able to essentially shape how storms bend and how they move. Let's go back to the animation here, and then I want to go out in the Pacific, and we see another zone. Sorry for the jiggly camera action, but we've got another zone of trails off the Oregon coastline. And so in the larger picture, we've got a high up here, and then a low that's curling underneath. And so they're just teasing or playing with this boundary between the two. And in the water vapor imagery, the chemtrail action shows up very, very clearly. From this fresh one right here, a little bit of action showing up out here. And then, of course, the heavier intensity at the interface. And what do we see? Hole and hole showing up. And then here's the storm back here. And then there were lots of trails across southwestern Canada through Alberta, British Columbia earlier in the day. We're going to step out, look at the large-scale flow. We've got a ridge here, trough here, and then a deepening trough. Really, this whole polar jet stream is really being pressed. This ridge appears like it's going to head up into the Gulf of Alaska, really compress the polar jet stream, and then carve out an unseasonably cold spell of weather across the upper Midwest as we move later on into the week. But for today, this action off the Oregon coastline is working right at that boundary, right at the boundary between this high and this low. They like to work these very subtle energy zones where they can have a big effect with little input. Same thing with the weak end of the baggy, little bit of a trough, and that's kind of what the red area here is signifying, is that we've got a little vorticity or a little action which can support the development of clouds. but it's just right in here as this trough is going to accelerate on or be weakened by. And just because the chemtrails are there, it's hard to discern exactly what they're doing until we get under the clouds and see the rippling pattern, how it manifests in the chemtrail debris clouds, and throw that into time lapse. But what this little trough will do is then in effect kick out this low that is bringing some rains into Texas. It'll either slow it down or speed it up. And here's this low over Texas. We can kind of step back: Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Florida. And when we look in here in Texas, we've got this big cube again with all of the low clouds and all of the odd texture inside the backside of this particular storm, with the steadier, warm frontal rains in this zone through Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. So this is probably why they're working on the chemtrail action out here in Nevada. Is what they're doing here will directly impact the storm as it accelerates and kicks out the rain-making one that's now across eastern Texas and southern Louisiana. Underneath this storm that's rolling through, we've had some clouds low enough to have them kissing the tops of the mountain tops. And about an hour ago, we had a little shower come through, just enough to not quite get the ground wet. It's dry again, obviously. And so not a lot has come from that. We had some turbulence up above. The back edge of the first part of this storm is already moving through. And you can see that the slope of the clouds is very strongly off to the east. In fact, this is kind of the flow of the Oregon. The drive from the west shows up in that particular angle. So we'd love to get some showers, but you know, these kind of events, when you see, as we showed you earlier, the hairiness in the clouds, once that shows up, it's really tough to get anything substantial out of it. And then as we peek off to the west, we've got bluish skies. And I showed you all those chemtrails out over in Nevada and Utah. I would expect that this cloudy deck here will clear off, and we'll be able to see some of those chemtrails rolling in this direction, or at least the clouds from those, as we get closer to sunset. And so I trust that that might be kind of an interesting view. Otherwise, it's just kind of a cool, cloudy day. The mountaintops are 14,000 feet. You know, he's got to have at least a mile clearance.
Okay.
But you know, we're just now hearing this guy that I'm zoomed in on, and then there's one behind us to the south. But it's just this too low. They're always too low.
Yeah, because commercial airliners, they're going at like 30 to 40,000.
Well, yeah, 31's kind of the minimum, and then the bulk of them like to be 33, 35, 37, and if they're eastbound, they're on an even, 34, 32, 36,000 foot. And so, just looking on this and how looking right into the eye, into the sun that's bright. That's intense, but these cubes cut out of this cloud, all these cubes.
Yeah.
All the way up and over. Shadow from the other one? Yeah, right over. So he kind of flew across the path of the previous one. And I even hear another one now, farther off to the southwest probably. I see is that it's a lot easier for them to destroy a storm than it is for them to work on creating one.
Right.
And so it's cheaper for them to introduce a resonance that's contrary to the storm's evolvement. Just scatter it. Scatter it.
Does that mean that the moisture, the precipitation happens somewhere else then? Like out over the Midwest? Or?
It just means the potential hasn't been released. It's the water's still kind of there. Let's see, here's another one. I hear him. I don't see him just yet. But so when we get through these sorties of when there's like 5 flights in 5 minutes, it's like it's trying to come together. It's trying to build, and so something has gone off on their energetic scan saying, yellow zone, we're verging on red, and so they send out some flights and then step on it, and then we end up, with this kind of hairy stuff, and Yeah, I can see this outer edge all through here had more definition,
Uh-huh.
and now it's falling apart. And you can see kind of like curlicues out at the bottom. And
Yeah.
on the time lapse imagery, we'll see where this cloud at the base wants to head towards the northwest, but that it's being strongly sheared right above that to the southeast.
Okay.
And so it literally is just rolled over, and so it cannot develop vertically. If it can't develop vertically, you can't develop the raindrops.
And then this over here is more like naturally defined.
Well, it's just unmolested for now.
Right.
That, or it's just in a zone where the resonance is conductive to storm development. And we know with hurricanes and tornadoes that they know how to do that just as easily.
Yeah.
Just as easily. So the drought agenda is a little bit cheaper to implement, I think. Oh, I know there's UFOs there.
Yeah.
I know there is.
Well, we had like a mass sighting. There was like 22 of us.
Uh-huh.
That we were on it was a medicine retreat locally.
Uh-huh.
And there was a group of 22 of us, and this was April or May 2011, so it's been, well over a year.
You'll see on satellite what ended up being a fairly large thunderstorm complex. I haven't looked to see how high the heights of the storms were. It covers a decent area, northern New Mexico, southern Colorado. The tops of it all back here are a bit on the hairy side. You can see this lack of definition. I'm a little shaky here because I'm zoomed in, trying to focus. So, not excited that they're going to develop much further. Then as I look to our west, we've got a spoke coming out. We actually have a couple of radial shakes. Radial as in like a radial, like a wagon wheel. The center of the spoke being here, and on one side the rain is falling behind these trees. Outside of it, this is our diffuse kind of like wedge or cube. And then we have the clouds radiating out. We saw some pretty incredible radials last night, and I have not looked at those pictures yet on the camera. I'll make sure I add them to this slideshow. Maybe we can't do an animated GIF with them. But the geometry that I observed coming overhead was just un-effing real. Unreal. So this is just a little shower, it looks like. As I look out over the valley, I'm seeing some dust being kicked up. So there's probably some gusty winds, unless that's simply a truck. And then the air, yeah, it's just a truck. And with as still as the air is, that just ends up suspended. And we've got some virga, that's what this is. Coming out some virga showers. That's what we got out of the storm. Yeah, the big one to the south was just a few sprinkles, netted no more than a trace. Anyway, time lapse will be interesting. That'll probably make up the bulk of this quote-unquote broadcast. Is the time lapse. I'm doing an interval every 10 seconds, so it's running 300 times normal speed. Probably last just shy of 3 minutes. Got a center point there, and then we've got to have squares or right angles making up this segment. Again, one side the rainy side, this side is the churning updraft side. Coming up on 0Z, the 18th of September, or 6 p.m. Mountain Time, the 17th of September. Still seeing this activity going on off the coast, this high pressure that they're developing off Vancouver Island, and then the low that's churning off of California. That's largely a dry low. There's not much moisture at all for them to work with. But nevertheless, they're playing out here enough that they're engineering the interaction between these two events. And again, as we say and say and say, subtle events, subtle input days ahead of time yields large outputs down the road. The activity over Nevada and Utah has simmered down. You can just see those little bitty black stripes in there. Boom, 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 boom. And that's the remnants of the chemtrails. And then this is our impressive storm that's rolling through here. Really has not given us much moisture at all. And that's kind of unfortunate. Let's head to the west And this is the overview of this event. There's just lots and lots of texture in it. Lots of cubes with ribs inside of cubes. And in particular, this guy right there, that cube in the center of it. Again, we have a hole. And we just are looking at holes that tend to bend the storms. And then we've got the gridding in here. Come down to New Mexico. Step out. Got a pair of holes here. And a hole here. It usually is probably anchored to this guy right here. And then from that out squirts the clouds. And you can see the higher cirrus, again with hole and hole, and all of this other manufactured structure across southwestern Kansas. And in the tops of it, these rings, you can see these holes right in through there. More holes here, and here, and here, and here, and here. All these little indentations. It's like they bend the ley lines of the earth. And when they bend these magnetic field lines, the water can't help but conform. The molecule that is water cannot help but conform to the shape of this energy. Thermodynamics, heat and humidity be damned. They're a secondary effect. And then the chemtrails that were back over Utah and then Nevada are still around. And there's still some up here over Utah. There's still some over mid-Utah. But the heavier action is now settled down across New Mexico. And where this high, thin cirrus cloud is crisscrossed with shallow, diagonal trails. And then the high clouds have now spread across Texas. And we still have hole and hole. And the big weather begins to shape around that. So it becomes all about the holes. Back east, there's a storm in the south. And what do we see? Hole, 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 hole. And so they shape the weather by aligning where they're going to put these holes. There, 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 there. And around these holes, which can be literally thousands of kilometers wide, or they can be a few kilometers apart. There's all of this nested scale effect. Up here in Ohio, high clouds. Tell me what you see. Do you see more holes with this ribbing kind of action in the cirrus? I mean, it's just unmistakable. But until you look for it, you'll never see it. Due west of Chicago, that's a perfect hole. Outside of Kansas City, holes. And the weathermen are effing clueless. Effing clueless. And it's kind of unfortunate because we've kind of been putting this out there for a couple of years, and they're just so stupidly dense, so blind in their beliefs that they're not open to seeing what's there in front of their face. More holes. So, that's just the holes of some of the satellite. We're almost at sunset. I'll dump the video and get it rendered. Sorry, I didn't want to leave out you California guys. But it looks like you've got them laced parallel to the coastline today. Look at them all. Those are just the persistent ones, and who knows how many of the little ones that are confused for regular contrails are intermixed in there. Just because you see a trail that's short and disperses quickly in the sky does not mean it's a contrail. That is a bloody mistake. They're chemtrails as well. It's like with a football team. You don't all have left guards. You need safeties. You need tailbacks. You need other positions. You need other capabilities and abilities. And those require trails of different different chemical compositions. Ones that will last for different periods of time. A short trail that lasts 5 seconds gives them data versus one that lasts 20 seconds. It denotes a different condition that the atmosphere is exhibiting. Trails well off the coast of California today. So they don't trail just over your neighborhood. This thing is global. This thing is global. And it is profoundly moved into South America. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. I'm just looking out in the Pacific, and you can see this is a total energetic cloud, and all the holes, and then the clouds spring from there. Fascinating, huh? All right, here we are coming at sunset. We just left the computer looking at the satellite imagery and that storm to the east. And I'm looking at the mountains just outside the house because as I peeked at radar really quickly, it looked like the thing was just on top of us. And so we've got some snow. These are definitely snow showers up high. There's still a little bit of snow left over from the event 5 days ago. But there's some snow falling up high as this event kind of winds up on top of us. You know, clouds underneath, got a low sun angle, but we're just not going to get anything out of it. These are all just snow showers. So we'll check back in a bit and see if we get a dusting on the mountain, or if it's just a little spit of rain, and we're left with some melting snowflakes. But it's close, and we could use the water, so I guess it's better up there than nowhere. Let's have a look out west. Alright, here's my P2 camera that's done time lapse for me. It's been a workhorse. I probably have 12,000 hours on this thing, and it's been outside in all kinds of weather, and it just keeps going. And I'm thank you Panasonic, thank you Panasonic. Out west we have this storm. Let me get it here focused here. Come back to infinity. We got sunset off to the west. You saw the showers in the mountains to the east. There's a little bit of something trying to come out of the clouds over the valley floor, but you know, it's just virga at best. And then off in here, there's actually a shower that is making it to the ground. The iris down a touch. You can see the shaft, and that may be, it's possible that that's a rain shaft. It also could be a snow shaft. Certainly up on the mountains, it's got to be snow. We swing to the west, sunset. No trails in the sky like we saw last night. We saw the plains all over in the sky in the west at sunset. None there today. But it's this cloud. You see this hazy white one running like this? Yeah, that's kind of curious. As opposed to this scud, this little orange thing in the foreground. See any holes in that again? See any structure in the shape of holes punched out of cubes? If you begin to look at the clouds, you'll see holes, and as the holes rotate, they conform to the shape of a cube. This is something that's highly unusual if you're well versed in fluid dynamics or something in behaving how the air or water behaves. There's another force at work here. Check out to the east. So we've got a few raindrops coming out of the sky. Just a few, and it is liquid. The temperatures are in the mid-40s. And there's our shower. We got a nice little rainbow. Almost a full arc has come together. And now you can see the snow as it falls over the mountains. Come on, puppy. We've got a few raindrops coming out of the sky. Just a few, and it is liquid. The temperatures are in the mid-40s. And there's our shower. We got a nice little rainbow. Almost a full arc has come together. And now you can see the snow as it falls over the mountains. Come on, puppy.